if you give Nigerians the opportunity to vote for their leaders in a free, fair, and credible manner, you have solved 50% of our problems. Social media has proven to be an effective tool in beginning any conversation. But as I said earlier, we must have a plan. There must be a bigger vision that accommodates everybody. Because the way you talk about SARS here is not the way somebody in Kano is talking about SARS. It's not the way somebody in Yola is talking about SARS. You must understand the federating system of our country and our differences, and then bring us under a common vision that everybody will be a stakeholder in.
Hi, welcome to Tek Talk on Africa Tech Radio. My name is Lilian Abirika. You can call me your brown sugar if you want. No pressure. No. Anyway, today we're going to be having a conversation about social media and activism, and our guest for today is a highly intellectual individual. If you've seen this video on social media, you'd know the very first time I saw your video, God, I said no. The only thing I memorized from way back before I finished that statement, it's Peter Aka. Right, and he's also known as Randy Peters.
Randy Peters.
So, back when I was in secondary school, the only thing I remember memorizing was Ohm's law states that the current passing through a metallic conductor at a constant temperature is proportional to the potential difference between its ends. Yeah. But that is the only thing I remember memorizing.
I mean, that's a lot.
Which lot?
To remember Ohm's law. I mean, you are an intellectual.
I'm not even in science anyway. But that is the only thing I remember, right? But look at you. You're listing... What? And I asked you whether you have a photographic memory, and you said what?
And I said, I'm not sure about that. Maybe.
How do you remember these things?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here. I mean, well done for all you do.
Thank you for coming.
Interest plays a key role. I mean, there are areas you will take me into. Like, if you delve too much into Ohm's law and abstract equations and, fundamental maths or, further maths, I may not be very, eidetic in that light. But when it comes to issues that concern humanity, government, leadership, those are areas that I find myself quite, savvy with. And once because of my interest in them, I'm always interested in who is doing what and how the actions of leaders affect the lives of people. So it is quite easy for the names or that information to stick as against any other thing.
So is it that you read it and then you remember, or it's from studying over the years?
Okay, so this is how it works, because I get this question a lot. There is no textbook on current affairs. Unless maybe you have current affairs pamphlets, which I do not really know much about. So the thing is, from paying attention to watching news regularly and then scribbling down piece of information. So when I hear that somebody is the president of Kenya, for example, I want to know what happened during his tenure and how did that go. So that name sticks. So over time, because I will still follow up, gradually that residual knowledge comes to play, and that is what is being put out there, and it's making it seem like it's some big deal. But
it is a big deal. Don't downplay it. I'm not for that. You're not going to downplay it on my watch. It is a big deal. Anyway, let me ask you this, because we're talking about social media and activism. Are you for or against social media regulation?
Am I for or against social media regulation? I mean, it will not be a yes or no answer, because everything that has disadvantages has advantage, or anything that has, the pros and the cons. And whatever that is not supervised has the tendency of going haywire. But the question will be, to what extent and what is the motive? If you talk about government, trying to regulate a thing, what is the motive and what exactly do you mean by your own regulation? Are you clamping down on dissent? Are you trying to make it impossible for people to hold government accountable through this means? If that is your motive, then that will be an outright no, because there is the Freedom of Information Act that Nigeria has. We are a democracy and people should have the right to their freedoms of expression. But then again, in exercising your right to your freedoms to express yourselves, to what extent do you take it? Do you now use that avenue to malign others, to put out false information, half-truths, unverified reports that also have the capacity to stoke, the embers of fear, violence, if not controlled? So in that regard, we must also monitor and ensure that what is being put out on these platforms do not have that, tendency or power to incite violence or cause harm to users or whatever it is. So that would be my own position on whether to regulate or not to regulate.
Okay, before we talk about this, the intricacies of social media and what people put on it and whether it's causing more harm or good, I want to ask you whether you're familiar with what's happening in Kenya in terms of the finance bill and the protests that followed.
I mean, everybody should be interested. These are a group of young people who have decided to also take their destinies in their hands, to say it is a problem in Africa, and Kenya is a very significant country in Africa. Whatever that causes destabilization in Kenya has ripple effects around the continent. So yes, I'm paying attention to Kenya.
So let us now talk about the active. You talked about young people, so I'm sure you're talking about those who are coming out to fight for what they say is their right.
Yes.
Let us compare Kenyan activism. The youth there, they are using social media, they're going to the streets.
Yes.
Nigeria did something similar a couple of years back. NSAS, #NSAS. They went to the streets and went on keypad. They used their keypads very well. Yeah. But then something happened at Lekki Toll Gate, and that halted the entire
20th of
thing.
October.
I know you remember. You remember the time. So let us compare that with what happened in Nigeria.
What would be the comparison? Lilian, the African continent is in desperate need of strong and efficient leadership. The future is looking even more bleak every day for the average young person. The opportunities that our fathers have had are not the opportunities we have today. And if we do not pay attention to them, there are no opportunities for the generation that will come after us. And that is why you see the campaign or the protest is almost being mobilized or pushed forward by the Gen Z and part of the millennials and with support from. We need to pay attention to what exactly is going on. And if we want to do a comparison of the two, you would understand that your rights cannot be more protected than whatever government that is in power. The Nigerian situation was quite almost different to the point that the Nigerian leadership at that point had no appetite for anything that looked like an uprising or a confrontation. Sort of a pseudo dictatorship, even in a democracy, where leaders do not believe that you have the right to protest or to air your grievances and to, attend to them, listen attentively, and do what they need to do. That is what is happening in Kenya now. The president has repealed and has said, I'm not going to assent to this bill. He has sent it back to Congress or the National Assembly. But there is a fallout. There were live arms that were fired at peaceful protesters. There were people who died. You would also have to investigate that part. And that, I think, is what the country is going towards. What exactly should be the position of law enforcement in handling issues like this? These are civic rights and responsibilities that the people have. So there are two different, countries, similar problems, similar approaches, but almost different responses from their leadership. How they move forward from there becomes, a story for another discussion.
Okay. But then is what Nigerians, what we do on social media, social media activism, is it actually effective, or is it what they call slacktivism? All talk and all tweets and no real action?
Lilian, every action will begin with talk. It will begin with a thought. It then moves into a conversation. Then it moves into an action. But the action must have a plan. What we do on social media is very effective. The NSAS protest began as a Twitter discussion. In fact, it began before 2020. And then again, it now moved to that. But the question is, what are the modalities? When we have these discussions, to what extent do we take them as reasonable conversations with a plan? Anger in itself is not a plan. And that is what you saw with the NSAS protest. Anybody who knew how these things go would know that protest would be scuttled. it will go the way it went. I said it severally, but of course, when you are not a known voice and people do not, it will not make so much impact.
What do you mean? What did you see that made you say that?
In fact, there are DMs that are still, my DMs are still my messages are still in the DMs of some of the key leaders or figures in this thing. When you have an issue and then you say we want to end SARS, and what your umbrella topic is end law enforcement brutality or police brutality, you must have an understanding that this brutality cuts across all the law enforcement agencies, whether police, whether Nigerian Army, DSS, EFCC,
Customs.
Everybody, customs, civil defense. So we paid attention to one, end SARS, and we occupied the Lekki toll gate. Day one, end SARS. Day two, end SARS. And it became like a very, a kind of a carnival sort of. There was food, there was drink, there was music, there was partying. The crux of the matter will begin to get swallowed up by this kind of festivities. And immediately the government released a statement and said, look, we have ended SARS, we have disbanded it. But then again, there is a clause. We are going to open what we call SWAT, you remember, which they have the rights and powers to do. Immediately, the attention should have been shifted to a bigger goal, which should have been electoral reforms. Look, the only reason why President Buhari did not end SARS when it started in 2018 was because he knew that whether he ended it or not, it would not affect his 2019 election or re-election. If Nigerian youths have the opportunity to vote in a free, fair and credible manner, you can elect leaders who will completely overhaul the law enforcement system. So you don't have to take it in peace. So it then means by the time we are done with end SARS, we will need to end civil defense. We will need to end EFCC. We will need to end. So you want to spend an entire generation protesting. So the priorities, as good as it was, were not set right. And that was how the government was able to play the upper hand.
Because you didn't talk about the entire force. You just talked about one.
We're talking about end SARS. And the government says we have ended SARS. So the question will be, so why are you still on the street? If SARS is your problem, we have disbanded it. So everybody go home.
And you won't tell me that we haven't done that, even if we just change the uniforms.
Yes, and it is just problem that changed location. Problem has changed name. NEPA, power holding, no light.
That is funny. Papa holding, right? The problem is still the same. So if you would have done it like being at the forefront of this activism of end what would you have termed it?
It would have been an end to bad governance.
Okay. And how would you go about it?
What we should have done, because there was momentum, we had international support. When you had figures like Beyonce tweeting in support of NSAS, figures like Hillary Clinton, the United Nations Vice Secretary General, telling the Nigerian government, our eyes are on you, you must protect these young people. We must give ourselves a higher reason to still be on the streets.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now we can move it to occupy the National Assembly, because at that point there was a bill in the parliament that was talking about amending the 2011 Electoral Act that now gave us this 2022 Electoral Act we used for the 2023 elections, where there was supposed to be INEC server. Imagine Nigerian youths coming out to say, look, we are going to form a group of persons to help INEC. We will build the server. INEC spent 117 billion building a server, and on the election days in 2023, they told you they had a glitch. And guess what? The Electoral Act gave them the permission to choose how to transmit those results. That was the loophole. If we paid attention to it, what I'm trying to say is that there must be a bigger vision that accommodates everybody. Because the way you talk about SARS here is not the way somebody in Kano is talking about SARS. It's not the way somebody in Yola is talking about SARS. You must understand the federating system of our country and our differences, and then bring us under a common vision that everybody will be a stakeholder in.
Because not everyone has had experience.
No, not everybody. And
so it's not my fight.
It is different. If you are talking about, if you go to Kontagora now, the person is telling you, what NSAS, that is your protest. So it becomes like they will now give it an ethnic coloration. Oh, because the president is a Hausa man, so they are protesting in Lagos. They want to scuttle his ambition. If you are not at the top of your game, Nigerian government, you are trying to fight a system that has been corrupt and in place for more than 60 years. You cannot do that by singing and dancing on the road. There must be a plan and a strategy.
Do you want to say the name of people that entered their DMs?
I mean, it's not what do I call it now? It's not a secret. There are people who, anybody, celebrities who were at the fore of that campaign, people like Files, and to be, in all honesty, they did an incredible job. That is not trying to undermine their actions or anything. What I'm only saying is that we could have done it better. There was a means. If not, they did their best. They stuck their necks. People like Macaroni, Mr. Macaroni, they were arrested. They were detained. They were physically assaulted, stripped on their clothes. So they did quite a lot. But we must do it better if we want to achieve.
Speaking of celebrities, so many celebrities came out to lend their voices on social media. We're talking about social media and activism. Social media activism. And they came and lent their voices to this protest, the end SARS and everything. And for some, actions were put behind the words. While for others, they just hid behind the keypads. Right? And it got me thinking, are these celebrities who lend their voices to activism or even put the name activists there, are they actually really effecting change, or is it just for branding?
Lilian, my dear sister, we cannot completely know the entire motive of a person in carrying out an action. But the truth of the matter is, anybody who speaks out for something that affects people is doing a good thing. In the face of aggression, silence is a tacit support to the oppressor. There is no neutrality. So even if a person is doing it for clout, you are doing it for whatever, as long as you're speaking in support of a cause, it is a fundamental problem with Nigeria, where you see people who have platforms, people who are, we call them celebrity, status celebrities, are very detached from the daily problems or challenges of their fans and supporters. The issue of SARS is something that should have concerned everybody who is a celebrity. If you are a musician for an A-list artist, you organize shows. Coming back from those shows at a hotel or wherever, your fans are stopped by these people. It is something that affects all of us, but somehow in Nigeria or in Africa, people feel like when you have a certain level of wealth or affluence, you are insulated from the problem until it becomes your problem or it happens to somebody close to you, then you begin to cry foul. So whether or not, whatever be your motive, it is important that you keep the conversation going. Your tweet, your statement, whatever it is, your comment, puts another layer of pressure on the authorities to do the right thing and protect lives.
So then what steps because we talked about how it's always different for people in terms of the kind of movement at the moment. So there's something that's happening to us now, economic-wise.
Yes.
Nobody would tell me. They said for the wealthiest man in Africa to open up
and cry too.
He don't read.
If
he read for him, which color is for us? So what steps would be put in place to? I'm using the word ginger, right?
Yeah.
To ginger the Nigerian youth, especially. To be more vocal to us, to oppose government rules and tyranny.
Understanding the gravity of what you are passing through will give you an idea of how you should react or respond. It is what is chasing you that will determine your flight capacity.
How fast you take off.
As we did now, you fit talk say me I no really sabi run until they tell you there is fire at the basement. And then you go know that you speed day your Lego.
Yes, so
you understand me? Once you understand the challenge, you see what is happening in Kenya. You talked about Kenya. Repealing that finance bill is not the end of the problem. There is a bigger problem because the Kenyan economy is in serious debt. Domestic foreign debts. Billions that were incurred even before this president came in. They have to look for a way to solve it. But when you look for a way to solve it by taxing an already impoverished people, to the extent that you now put tax on bread, on flour, there will be a problem. Nigerians will come to the realization when, some people talk about ethnicity and religion and all of that. Now, the common denominator is becoming poverty and suffering. Suffering unites people more than anything. When everybody start to see shaggy at equal rates. So it will not now be the case of in Kano, the president is a Hausa man. No. As you know, seafood chop, the person for Anambra know the seafood chop, then we will now think of how to get food. It will not be the tribe of the president we'll be talking about. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Perfectly.
So the shege is going round, and it's enough to go round. That is the truth. Premium. So everybody is fighting one battle or the other. Go now and see any celebrity who will say, I want to do giveaway. If you put anything, in 10 minutes, you have more than 20,000 account numbers. People need 2K. And what we are saying is not a joke. People wake up in Nigeria, do not know where the next meal will come from.
Sure.
So Nigerians must come to the realization that Nigerian politicians are the weapon fashioned against you. So the earlier we come together and make sure that we ensure that this weapon stops to prosper, the better for us. If you sit down and continue to play the ethnic or I don't care card, the prayer is that the victim card should not fall on you. These figures you hear are statistics. 10 people were killed in Plateau. They are human beings. So your prayer is that you too do not fall victim of a kidnapper, a terrorist, because those are the only sectors that are thriving in Nigeria, crime and criminality. Every other thing is in trouble, whether health, finance, economy. So what we are trying to say is you must build a higher level of moral consciousness and know that it is up to us to fix this thing. Nobody will. You want to jackpot? How many will jackpot? If I leave, I have siblings here. My mother is here. Who is ready to give me visa? If Trump comes, he will tighten visa policy. Biden come, he go do his own. Europe go do his own. And it will never be as your home. Let's come together and fix this. Social media has proven to be an effective, incredibly effective tool in beginning any conversation. But as I said earlier, we must have a plan. We must understand our claims and pick our battles. If we understand that at this point, what exactly do we want to do? We have a window of opportunity, and let me be very honest with you. That is why if you listen to some of my videos on social media, I have been clamoring for one thing: electoral reform. Lilian, if you give Nigerians the opportunity to vote for their leaders in a free, fair, and credible manner, you have solved 50% of our problems. Because any leader who comes has the understanding that the same system that brought you can take you out. The pride and arrogance that you see these people exhibit is because they have done what they call state capture. It is the democratization of disenfranchisement, politics without the people. Whether you vote or not, a leader will emerge. Elections results will be announced. You saw it in 2023. In Lagos here, people were physically beaten out of polling units. If you see leaders who come and are not talking about electoral reform, you need to be very careful of those set of leaders. So it is our duty now to put pressure on them. Do we want to sit and wait until 2027? Look, if we do not amend that electoral law and ensure that INEC begins to work for the people and not for the politicians or statesmen, we are only waiting for a repeat of 2027. And then, as Nigerians, we can take anything. If you push Nigerians to a wall, they will dig a hole through it and will tell you, okay, no worry, now only 4 years in go still get. Maybe another 4 years. Another 4 years in go still get. You go reach 38, you go reach 50. Before you'd go old. It is either you do it now or we just accept our fate.
Give us like a tip, right, on how to actively use all. We have so many social media platforms.
Yeah.
How to actively use the social media platforms to effect this change that you're talking about.
We must become less distracted by non-essentials. We must have a new orientation about the important things that we should discuss. The social media as it is there right now, if you go on Twitter now, there are a lot of things that are trending. Sometimes you will hardly see what affects the lives of Nigerians. You might see people talking between Wizkid and Davido, who is better. You might see people talking about who did a better wedding between one celebrity or the other. Whose Bentley or whose Rolls Royce is more authentic and whose private jet is better. Once we align our priorities, if we begin to have conversations, it builds. It is like a trickle-down effect. You will see a lot of people will be talking about it. Even people who do not know will become interested. Imagine scrolling through your Twitter feed and the next thing you see is, what is INEC doing? Why is INEC chairman not talking about it? You see about 20 tweets. Subconsciously, it embedded in your subconscious. So you too will begin to ask yourself, but really, waiting these INEC people really they do safe. So do you understand what I'm saying? We must identify our strong points, our essential issues, pay attention to them. tweet on it, put it on your WhatsApp status, put it on your Instagram story. When you see conversations that affect elections, don't scroll. Not be the one where they post or Tunde not or Insta blog where no concern you. Gossip that adds nothing to your life. That is the one you want to comment. That is the one you want to react to. You will see people cursing and swearing for themselves inside those comments. The one, once you post something concerning election, go and see the number of comments. Are we ready?
When you post very dark man.
When you post a very black person or whatever it is that they call themselves. So you will see like 10,000 comments in one day. Nigerians like, it, and it's a good thing. There is a lot going on. There's a lot of pain. People want to find an avenue to maybe do away with some stress, but it should not take us from the core of what we ought to do, because guess what? We are victims of this bad government every day. And if you are not careful, people will pay with their lives ultimately. We pray it is not you or somebody you love.
Amen. Since you talked about Davido and Wizkid, I just have to do this, right?
Okay.
Davido got married.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that we didn't hear, right? Then somewhere along the line, of course, we know all the shenanigans that has happened in terms of Davido. And they were like, oh, why did Choma go ahead? That is their own cup of tea.
That is it.
Then Sharon Oja got married.
Yeah.
First of all, the story was God when.
God when. And then.
And God forbid.
And God whatever.
God will never, right? And somebody now came out to say, keep your private life private. Keep your, that way nobody can poke holes.
Yeah.
But I'm asking a question. Isn't it better? How do I phrase this?
Okay. I think I have an idea or a sense of where you're going to. But
is the transparency that social media offers, isn't it a huge upside to social media? Or would people rather go their whole lives not knowing the truth?
Let me answer it this way. See, as we started this conversation by saying what has advantages has disadvantages. This social media that you think that it has destroyed some things has also built a lot. Would you not be happier that man come package for you, say he was a former altar boy, or he was a former person, a catechist in his home parish, in his church, only for you to go discover saying a ritualist, and for social media person can tell you, say, this person na ex-convict, whatever he's claiming to be to you, so we get in receipt. Before you know, they will drop one. Before you know, they will drop one. So what we are trying to say is, it is a space that can be used for good and for bad, however you decide to. If you want to keep things in secret, what if that secret where you keep night later go kill you? And if you don't want to keep them in secret, what if that exposure where you carry and come night later come destroy her? So you are the one who will weigh your options and know exactly what is your motive. A marriage is a beautiful thing. Love is a wonderful thing. And as long as the two people, because at the end it boils down to you are the one. If you want to be multiple divorcee, if you want to get married to whatever person that you want to marry, the Lord be with you. But social media will be there to give their opinion. How you react to it and how you use it is also up to you. So
do you think that social media promotes a more accountable society, or do you think it promotes negativity? But I know you will say...
A balance of two.
Right.
Recently, it has been quite toxic. It has been quite toxic, especially for the materials that are put there. And I am concerned about the fact that very young people there is no way of filtering exactly what they should be able to have access to. These things just go out there. They are uncensored. It has a huge negative impact on young people. It has a negative impact also on even adults. I've known people who have gone for therapy and they have had to tell them to stay away from social media. It can be a toxic environment. It depends on the people and how you chose to use it. What you decide to take take in from social media. It is a tool for good. It is a tool for bad. Let us not, amplify the negatives and see how we can use this thing to get... People's lives have been changed on social media. People have received help that they could never have gotten.
See the recent Solana coin guy.
Coin guy.
Where would you have seen those
and how would you have known that he was such an honest person, that there are still trustworthy people in the country? Meanwhile, the image almost everybody has about Nigeria, they go buy you, they go, LGBT food.
That's healed a lot.
Healed a lot, that I mean, a Nigerian send back how many?
Nigerian prince.
Guy, that will be the last time that number will connect for a lot of people.
Right.
They play. You dey wine
I know
crypto.
collect am back. Wetin don lost.
You dey go make mistakes, send over money wire for person wey.
You cannot call a bank and say please freeze that account.
No, now.
That guy did
Once
well.
I do not pick again, I mean, kudos to him.
Kudos.
Thank you for being the good part of Nigeria.
Thank you for projecting positivity.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you, right? You mentioned that you are an activist, right? And
Okay, go on.
you say what you have to say.
Police. No, I've never said I was
You
an
just said
activist.
police.
I've never
Okay, what
actually
are
said
you?
I was an activist.
What are you? Tell me describe Peter or Randy.
Peter. My name is Peter Aka. On social media, Randy Peters. Peter, it is sometimes difficult to put a tab or a finger on exactly one thing that I do, but this is it, and this is what makes it easy. Everything that I do, I have a penchant for ensuring that humanity is better than I met it. I love the idea of the world and humanity. And then it comes down to Nigeria. The affection I have for Nigeria, strangely, I don't know how I got to this point. It's like when you are in a relationship with a spouse. That is how Nigeria matter bothers me. If there is something, I don't give me that look. I mean, that is it. Even me too, I give myself that look.
You're a better person than I.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in
you
certain
are
way
in that regard. You are.
I sleep sometimes and I dream. If something is going on and I have not said something or I have not tried to put in my own quarter, I can wake from it. Like a video I talked about a guy who was, beaten to death in Ajay Crowther University. I had avoided that story, not to comment on it because the people who were involved were already social media people they had. But somehow it wouldn't just go. I will begin to feel mood swings because, it happens to me like that. So that is what I am about. So whether you see me do something on entertainment, in church, religion, a skit maker talking about making sure people go to church or give their lives to Christ, or whether you see me talking about analysis, it is all geared towards ensuring that we have a better country for everybody. There is an old Methodist creed that has become a mantra for my life, that it says that we do all the good we can to all the people we can, anywhere we can for as long as we can. I mean, that is why we are in this world, to show kindness to one another. I don't have plans to be in this world forever. At some point, we will all have to leave. But the question is the difference we make. What did you do to help other people? Should I be known that I came here, I amass so much wealth, I steal the kind of money from public office that I do not need? One person takes 50 billion, 20 billion. The money where you dey pray to get now, Lilian, if God give you that money, how many cars can you drive? What exactly can you eat? How many houses can you live? You wear designers today, another, brand comes out tomorrow. So our needs are so small, but we begin to focus on our wants, which are things that we can do without. So that is what I'm about.
All right. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Nigeria. And I've never traveled out of this Nigeria.
That's like the most political answer you ever gave. A friend of mine will tell you, I'm African first.
Very African.
But what state? Where did you grow up?
Okay, a lot of persons asked this and I didn't want to say. I'm actually from Cross River State.
I would never have guessed. But that's because I'm terrible at guessing.
Where are you from?
I'm from Nigeria.
You're Nigerian, I mean. Tit for tat. Stop playing.
I grew up in Lagos.
Lagos,
Yes.
I mean. Okay, that's beautiful. And part of the reason why I'm not forthcoming, it's not like there is anything. I'm very proud of my heritage, my upbringing. I'm from Ogoja, I'm from Cross River State. I'm not from Calabar. A lot of persons, when you say Cross River, they just attribute it to Calabar. In fact, my hometown is about 4 hours away from Calabar, so I don't speak the language. Why I don't always try to, put it forth as where I am from is because I want you to just know me for whom I am.
Yeah.
I love to be that cosmopolitan. If you're Yoruba, I love Yorubas. They are the major people, Hausa or Igbo, whatever it is. I'm Peter. Know me as Peter.
All right.
And love that.
Know him as Peter and love him as Peter. Thank you very much for joining us today. We've had a fantastic conversation. And do also follow us on our social media platforms, Tek Radio on Instagram and Africa Tech Radio everywhere else. And he is Peter.
Aka.
Yeah, Randy Peter.